we all want to be able to enjoy our layouts, and one big part of that is making sure your rolling stock is performing at its very best. So in this video, we're going to look at how to make sure your rolling stock rolls more like this and less like this, how it can stay coupled properly, as well as ensuring that it stays on the track the way it should. This is Scott with the Farmington Valley Railway. So let's go up to the workbench and I'll show you what I do on all my kit builds and ready to run cars. So if you're building a kit or getting a piece of rolling stock right off the shelf ready to run, there's a couple of steps that I always take in order to make sure that my rolling stock performs its best on the layout. Each of these steps is going to be just as important. I'm going to walk through the steps with you, show you the what and why. Hopefully this will help you to ensure your rolling stock is performing at its best so you can enjoy model railroading and not model mechanic. In front of me I have two types of wheels here. On the left is a plastic wheel, and these are pretty common on roller stock, especially older rolling stock. And on the right is a metal wheel. This is an Intermountain, but there's quite a few manufacturers, both current and past, that make metal wheels. And what you're going to find is there are three benefits to metal wheel sets. The first one is they are more free rolling than plastic. That puts less resistance on your locomotives. You can haul more cars or just more cars more easily. Second thing you're going to find is that as plastic wears, it's going to leave that plastic gunk on your rails, and you don't have that problem with the metal wheel sets. And the third thing is that it's going to offer a little bit extra weight at the very bottom of the car, which is going to help, again, keeping things running at their best. Anytime you're working with wheels, you always check to make sure they're engaged. You're going to take your wheels, put them in these little grooves right in here, and make sure that they line up. And this is ensure that the wheels are spaced far enough apart so that they track properly. The second thing you want to do is when you put them in your trucks, you want to make sure they spin freely. You'll see here this is an AccuRail truck with a Intermountain metal wheel, and these spin extremely freely. This particular combination is one that I find extremely effective. I've never really had any issues with these, so anytime I'm the off chance that I need to replace a set of trucks, I will have a stash of AccuRails handy, and I'll put the part number on the bottom of the screen here. These are 33-inch wheels. Intermountain also makes 36-inch and some other sizes as well. There are other manufacturers that do make wheels, so when you're going to be buying them, shop around, see what you can get for a good price. The Intermountain wheels that I buy typically are right around $1 per axle, but it pays to shop around. I've seen differences from upwards of $25 to $30 difference between different shops online. Also keep in mind your shipping costs as well. Another thing that I do is, since these do pop up from time to time at train shows, as long as they're less than $1 an axle, I'll pick those up. So I have a kind of a selection of different metal wheels hanging around, and it works out pretty well, especially when you're either replacing plastic wheels or you have wheel sets that just don't spin right because of some minor differences in the length of the axle itself. If you find your wheel sets aren't spinning as freely as they could, this is a great tool to have in your toolkit. This is a axle reamer, and what this does is, as you can see, there's little blades here and here on the ends. You place them inside your truck, give it a few spins, and what it does is it will trim out this little pocket here. Any flash or unevenness, it will clean that out. If they're really tight, this one's a little loose here, but if this was a really tight fit, it would open that up a bit and help your axle potentially to spin better. So definitely for the couple of dollars that these tools cost, they're good to have around. The passenger car I showed you in the intro, that was an older Rapido passenger car, and that particular one, it said in the manual that because of the wipers that they use for electrical pickup, it can cause the wheels not to spin as freely as they could. Their recommendation is either a puff of graphite or some light oil. For certain cars, that may also be an option. I'm not a big fan of using oil on wheels because I don't want to be picking up that dust, but we're talking about using the best tool for the job here, and just know you have options to make sure that your wheels are rolling at their very best. When we go ahead and attach our trucks to the bottom of the car, is we want to make sure that we can eliminate the wobble. And this is something I've seen, again, where these aren't always adjusted right out of the box, especially for ready-to-run cars. So what you want is you want one truck to have a little bit of wobble. So not only does it spin left and right, but also wobble up and down a little. And you want the other truck to have no wobble, just be able to spin left and right. And what this does is it ensures that your cars don't wobble too much, but they can still adjust for potentially uneven track. So that's why you only want one to do a little bit of wobble and the second one not to. So have your screwdriver handy, make those adjustments as needed. Next thing we want to do is pay attention to our coupler height. So this is important because you want all of your cars to stay coupled. So what you do is you take your coupler height gauge. This is a Kadee plastic one, so it will not cause issues with short circuits on live rail. And you couple up your car to it. And the two things you want to check are to make sure that the coupler heads themselves are lined up evenly, and also that the trip pin is above this little shelf on the bottom. And this will ensure that the trip pins will not snag on your turnouts or anything in your track, and that your coupler height is consistent, and to ensure cars do not uncouple when they're not supposed to. The second piece that we're going to want to look at is maintaining consistency with the couplers that you choose. These are Kadee couplers. They're made of metal. They have this magnetic uncoupling feature which uses this trip pin here. They're very reliable. They've been around a long time, and I just use them on all my rolling stock. There are other brands like Sargent, which look more like an actual coupler. You've got Accumate, which is by Derail, also used by Atlas and some other manufacturers. Key thing is consistency. Whatever you decide to use, try to be as consistent as possible. And I know that's tough for modelers on a budget, especially when you're starting out in the hobby. Just know that if you have different brands of knuckle couplers, for example, and you start seeing issues with them coupling or decoupling, that's a good cue that those should be the next cars up on your list of cars to convert. But whatever you choose, as long as you follow the NMRA height gauge and ensure that they're all the correct height, then you're in good shape there. So the next item is going to be the weight of the car. There are guidelines for how much a car should weigh, and what this does is it ensures that it can keep enough weight on the car so it stays on the track reliably. What happens is when you get a light car in the middle of some heavier cars, that light car has a tendency to get pushed off the track by some of the others. You'll see this in prototype railroading as well, where they'll have empty stack cars or empty center beam flats more toward the back of the train for similar reasons. So this is certainly a prototype practice as well. And for this, I use just an inexpensive kitchen scale. I will also use strips of different size and weight of stickable weights. They come in different sizes here. I've got some ½ ounce. These are for balancing tires. You get them in an auto parts store. They have double-sided tape on one side. These are the Napa ones. These are ones I got at Harbor Freight. They come in some different weights. I get some ½ ounce and ½ ounce. In order to find the recommended NMRA weight for your scale, what you want to do is go to nmra.org, click on Standards, and then Standards and Recommended Practices. And this is going to have recommended practices for just about everything. We want to go all the way to the bottom into the RP15 section. And you're going to see car weight here. It's RP-20.1. And when we click on it, it's going to give us a document that was last revised January 1990. So this one doesn't really change. And it's going to list all of the major scales, their initial weight, plus the additional weight per inch of car body in ounces. And all you do here is you look up the recommended weight on the table at the NMRA website. For HO, that is going to be 1 ounce plus an additional 1/2 ounce per inch of car length. This is a 40-foot refrigerator, and using the NMRA weight specifications, car is 5.5 inches long, so that would put it at, rounded up to 3.8 ounces of weight. So that's what you want to target. So what I do is I make sure the wheels and my couplers are on, and I'll weigh the parts, and then if it's low, then that's where these weights come in. So I'll stick these weights on the floor. I'll try to get as close to where the trucks are as possible. If it's only one I need, then I'll put it in the center. Then I'll do the final install for the car and double check my weights again, and then I'm good. So this car is overweighted, and this is something I picked up at a train show. What some folks will do is they'll put in extra weight on a car, in this case an extra ounce, and what that does is it creates an extra sense of mass. It adds to the realism. Not everyone does it. Don't feel that you have to, but it's certainly something that some folks do, and again, it's part of enjoying the hobby in whatever way you like. I personally stick with the NMRA weights if I have to round a little bit because of just the weights I have. If I'm going to do anything, I'm going to go a little over the weight, but I'm not going to go too much over because it's just what I had chosen to use. But I want to make sure that my cars stay consistent. So I hope this here has given you an idea of how to tune your freight cars for the best performance that you can get. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Happy railroading.